Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for Journaling on a Budget, the Memory Lane series. And so we are working on a half journal, half lap book created in the form of a lap book with a kind of standard journal in the front, and then in the back we are going to have a kind of traditional lap book section. And so what we're going to do today is we are going to turn this into a gusseted pocket. Now, the thing about lap books is that when you start putting down papers that you really love, sometimes they wind up getting covered up. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. This was the inside of the back cover. This was the inside back page. And, you know, they went so nicely together, but it is just something that this is not going to do us any good just opening it up and it's a pretty picture. Now, if you wanted to leave your book that way, you could. But, you know, I want to make it useful. And in order to do that, we need to do something with it. And if we were to cover it up with pockets or belly bands, we're going to cover up all the pretty pictures anyways. If we turn it into a gusset, at least when you kind of open that gusset, you can kind of see down inside there and you'll see a little bit of it. So we're just going to have to do that because, and you know, this may wind up getting covered up, and actually being that it's the inside cover, you know, it's the front of the lap book section, probably is going to get covered up. Maybe we'll put a flap on top of it to make it so that you'll eventually be able to see it. But it's just one of those things where you just play it by ear. Now, the only way to know that you wouldn't have to do that is to plan it out completely from the start and know exactly what was going where. You could put plain papers here. This is the inside back cover. There's no way I'm ever getting that off, but I could have not used this and saved it for something different. If I had thought about that this was going to become a gusset. But I just play it by ear and do what feels right at the time, so I don't try and plan it out from the beginning. You could do it that way so that you wouldn't cover up something you just love, but you know it's there anyways, even if it is covered up. So what we're going to start out with is we're going to make gussets that will fit in here. And I have here, I have a picture that I cut out of the train book, and I thought that the picture itself would fit from top to bottom, but part of this writing comes out just at the very bottom. And I don't like that. I don't want that just little bit of white with a little bit of words on there. And then I liked what that said. It says, "A proud nation saw the American West linked to the rest of the country when the first transcontinental trains came down the mountain into San Francisco." It's like, that's really kind of cool. And like I said, this may wind up getting covered up too. We'll have to see, but I'm going to leave those words there. So what I'm going to do is the top is just the sky. And so I'm going to cut this off right under the words. So that will be, and then we'll cut off some of the sky at the top, and that way it will fit on here. We're going to have to trim it down. It looks a little bit to fit on there. And that's going to go on the front there, but I'm going to glue the whole thing and then weight it down. So I'm going to do that last. We also will need to put something on our pocket here. And this is our pen box that we have. It's a box that will hold our pens for our journal. So I don't know if we'll get to that part today or not. We'll see. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do the gussets first, and then we will put this on the front, and then all that's going to need to be weighted down. So then we will weight that down and let that sit so that it can dry really well until next time. The dogs keep thinking they hear something outside, and I don't know what it is. I've checked a couple times. There's nothing there. But, so what we need to do is we need to decide how tall do our gussets need to be. So our gussets need to be as tall as our cardboard. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this on here. And so this is how tall they're going to be. And I'm just going to put a mark on there. So that's how tall our gussets will be. So that's where we're going to cut it. And then we're going to need to have 2 gussets. So we're going to cut it in half. Let's see, that's 8.5 by 11. So that would be, half would be 5.5. So it may not be exactly half because it only goes out to 5 at the end, but I'm just going to kind of guess. at where that would be, just right there. Okay, and then because we know we need them this tall, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off on that line that we just made. Maybe just a touch under, but barely. Actually, I'm not looking at the line. I think I'm looking at part of the... Where's the line? There it is. There we go. Yep, just a touch under. Okay, that's good. So that's going to fit in there. And one more. Just barely under. Let's set those aside. We may need them for something else later. Maybe even put them on. Are they wide enough to go on the box? No. I was thinking maybe they could go on the boxes and then put something smaller on top. Okay, so these are going to go here like this. Are they going to fit? Yes, they are. And they're going to be just barely, just a smidge shorter. And by the time we glue them in, that might not even happen. They might be just as tall. So we're going to set this aside for a second. And we're going to build our gussets. So they go in the book this way. This is this gusset, and this is this gusset. So we need to score them that way, up and down, from the back of the book to the outside of the book. So I just had that, I just said that, and then okay, this is the way they're going to go in there. And so I need to score it. Now, you can decide where you want to score it at. And I am thinking, do I want to, let me get my, I don't know if I want to do a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. I'm thinking 3/4 of an inch. So that would be 3/4 of an inch, and then 1.5. Or should I do it in an inch? I've already started now, but I could switch it if I need to. 3/4 will be good. Okay, so that's 1.5. So then we have 2 1/4, 2 1/4, and 3. And how many do we want? Okay, I'm going to fold this first. So we're just going to concertina fold this, which means fold it one way. And you really want it to be as straight as you can make it. And turn it around and fold it back the other way on those score lines. Making sure that you burnish those down as you fold, and then fold it back this way. And then if I were to cut it on that score line, that's how much I would have. And this is how far we would open up, which is going to be about 1 inch. Let's do that last one and see what that will do for us. Because you want it to open up enough to give you some room, but you don't need it to open so far, because you're going to have a lot of other stuff over there, so you're not going to be able to fit a whole ton in there anyways. So what happens when you build the gusset is the bottom gets attached together, but the top doesn't. So then the top expands like this. And so this will expand. If I cut it off right here, it will expand that far, which that to me looks like a nice distance. That's probably about, let me see, I got a ruler here. So this will be glued to the front, this will be glued to the back. So it will expand from there to there. So it's going to expand between 1 1/4 and 1.5 inches. That's definitely plenty. That's as big as our spine, so we're definitely not going to stuff that much stuff in it. But it does also give you a little bit of room to put your hand in there if you need to. But we will put a lift out in there at some point too, which will lift your things out. So that's it. That's where we're going to cut it. And I'm just going to put a line there. We'll trim that with our trimmer because I'm no good at cutting things by hand. So then we're going to go 3/4, 1.5, 2 1/4, and 3. I believe that's what we did here. Yes. Okay. So we'll just concertina fold this one up. Making sure that we kind of try and keep it straight, because even though you've got those score lines in there, it's not necessarily going to make it straight. And if you don't have a scoreboard, you don't need to have one. You can. They are nice to have. They are useful. It is one tool that I do use, along with my trimmers, I think, and some punches are the things I use the most. But definitely before I had one, I still didn't have any problem with this. You would just draw your lines and put your piece of paper on something soft. Fairly soft, not really soft, but this is about 4 pieces of paper, I think, because it's a big thing folded in quarters. And then you would just put a line where you wanted it to be, and then just hold your ruler there. Take a bone folder, and if you don't have a bone folder, take a pen that is out of ink. Let me see. This pen is supposed to be out of ink. Sometimes when you have a pen that runs out of ink and you save it for this, they wind up getting ink back somehow. So, but then just go ahead and hold it there. This is just a pen. It's got the ball roller on it. You know, it's a ballpoint pen. So that makes it nice because that kind of rolls across where you want your score line. And now, see, the score line from the bone folder and the score line from the pen are both just as well. And then you can just fold them there. And if you don't even want to score them, you don't have to. You can just like put a line on there and fold it from line to line. So, but just so that you know, you don't have to have a scoreboard if you don't have one right in the beginning to still do exactly the same thing. You don't have to have a bone folder. An empty pen works perfect. So when you clean out your drawers, keep a few of those empty pens because they really do work nicely. All right, so I am going to trim that with the trimmer because I'm so terrible at cutting a straight line, even if I have a line to follow. I'm just going to put that on there. So there's one gusset, and put this one on here. There's 2 gussets. We'll set those aside for later. Okay, so in order to put our gussets in, we are going to just fold them back up again, give them a burnish. Burnishing just means to basically press your folds heavily. And that just kind of keeps whatever you're working on folded nicely while you're working on it. There, good enough. So then what we're going to do is we are going to take the gusset and we are going to attach it. Okay, okay, see? You know, things don't always work the way you think they're going to work. I put it the wrong way. See, my gusset only comes that far. So that was really silly, but it happens. So let's do it again. Thank goodness I got out 2 pieces of paper. All right, so it's going to be this tall. How in the world did I do that? I cut it in half this way. That's what I did. Okay, so it's going to be this tall. Here. Pay attention to what I'm doing. Even though I double checked, remember I did. So set that aside. Our gusset is going to go this way, just like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try and get my scoreboard. All right, it goes this way, which means that I need my lines to go this way. And I'm going to just do it all at once. And these lines, people ask about these lines in my scoreboard. I did that with just a permanent marker, a thin point permanent marker, and I just made a line every 1/2 inch. The orange ones are on the inch mark, the turquoise ones are on the 1/2 inch mark. That just really helps me when I'm looking, like if I'm going 7, I know that's orange, I know that I'm coming to this orange line down here, and it just kind of helps, because sometimes when you go to do a score, you know, your bone folder might want to wander a little bit. So, all right, so we're going to go again. I don't like the way that's sitting there, so that's better. Okay, I'm going to go to 3/4 of an inch. It wasn't fitting over here. It wasn't quite straight. Whoops. And you don't want to push so hard that you put a hole in your paper. So kind of don't use the point of your bone folder. Use more the edge of it. Okay, so there's 3/4, 1 1/2, 1 1/2, 2 1/4, and 3. And then I'm going to cut it at 3 1/4. 3 3/4, not 3 1/4. Okay, I'm going to cut it there. That last score mark was just there instead of a pencil mark. Okay, so keep that going that way. Yep. Okay, and then again, we're going to do it at, I don't like how that fits in the corner. That fits better. Okay, 3 3/4, 1 1/2, 2 1/4, 3, and then I'm going to cut it at 3 3/4. I want to make sure I keep this straight because that's close to the size of the rest of them, so I want to make sure that that's the one that I cut off. There we go. Now hopefully that works. I only brought out 2 pieces of that color paper. Okay, let's get rid of this. And just double check that that's the right size. Yes, it is. Now we'll concertina fold them. And it works better if you burnish it between each fold. A lot of times I don't do that until I get to the end. I do kind of do it with my hands. And the first one there, I'm going to guess that's right where I cut it. That one was just a touch smaller. It's not going to make a difference. If you can see, there is a little bit of a gap there. Not a big deal. Okay. Let's just kind of try and press that a little bit. And then do this one. And then we'll be able to put them in our book because hopefully they'll be the right size. But, you know, you make mistakes, and it's not like that paper is wasted. I can use it for something else. I can use it for a gusset for something else. You know, there's a lot of different things you could do with it. If you have little kids around, you could let them glue the two together like this and make themselves a little fan. So, you know, there's always something you can do with those mistakes. Okay. And if I didn't have any more paper, I could have just went ahead and concertina folded another piece of paper so that, and then, you know, put them both in there. One here and one here. That would have worked also. It would have been a little more fiddly. Okay, so now sometimes the way that this one is working is this one is going backwards and this one is going forwards. Actually, if they're both going the same way, it works better. Because then when you put it in, this is going to glue flat onto the back cover. So this part of the concertina is not going to do us a lot of good. If I had had another one coming this way, it would have been these two, and it would have opened just a little bit further. But that's okay. Remember, I added one anyway. So it is the way it is, and I don't mind it that way. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to glue it right down, and I think I'm going to glue it to this piece because this piece actually has a size to it. This is a touch bigger. So this is the one we want to make sure that it sticks to, or that it's in the right place, I guess I should say. And then the question is, do I want it to be flat on the back? Okay. I want the piece that's going to be glued down and not open. In other words, the fold is to the inside. I want that piece to be on the back cover. So I'm going to do so that this part opens right from the front cover and it opens that far. So I'm going to glue the one that points towards the inside of the book to the front cover, or the front of our pocket, I should say. And because it's a gusset, it's going to be opened and shut. And open and shut, and things are going to be stuffed in there. You're going to want to make sure that you do put glue all over the same thing, or all over the whole thing. Now, and get it to the edges is very important. If you get extra on there, just, you know, and it squishes out, that doesn't do you a whole lot of good. So you kind of want to try not to do that. I actually have way too much here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth it out. Which will help. And then I'm just going to run my finger across there. Now remember, we want the one flap to face to the inside. So I'm going to line this up with the top and with the top of the page here and with the top of the pocket here. So I'm going to line that up nicely. And if it winds up being too long this way, you can always trim it off after it dries. So that's going to go like that. And then it's going to stick to the front cover. Okay, so we want to do the same with the other. We want the flap that is open to the inside. So this is the flap on this part of our this time I'll try not to put way too much glue on it because there's just no point in it. You want to have enough glue to glue things together. Like I want this whole thing covered. I want glue out to the edges all the way around. But putting extra glue doesn't do you any good. It just leaves you a mess to clean up and you've wasted your glue. So always remember, try not to overdo. Doesn't mean you're not gonna, sometimes it happens. Alrighty, so I want to make sure that that's opening towards the front. And here's the thing. If I had accidentally put this one on backwards, then all you need to do is make sure that you put this one over here on backwards. If I had done it with the fold here instead of the empty flap, if I had done it with this fold, then I would want to make sure I did the same thing on this side so that they open the same way. That's the only thing that you need to happen, is they both need to open the same way. So if you glue one down and you really don't want to try and rip it back up again, just glue it the same way. It doesn't really make a difference which way this goes in, so long as both of them are the same. I have a flat piece of paper here where this is a fold here. And so on this side, I have the flat piece of paper there with the fold here. Okay, so we're just going to press those down. And then what I'm going to do, to me, it just helps with your gusset just a touch, is I'm just going to go in right at the bottom and just a little bit of glue at the bottom there, because I want that to glue together. And again, just a little bit. And if you forget to do this part and you've already glued it to the back, don't worry about it. It is not going to hurt a thing. So I don't want a bunch of that glue squishing out because I don't want it to glue to, hold on, I need some water. Ooh, got it. I don't want it to glue to the inside cover here. So I am going to just wipe that off. Even though it's going to be glued right there anyway, so I guess it really doesn't make a difference. All right, so there we go. And that's not going to hold right this second. It's okay. We're going to put a weight on it as soon as we're done putting our glue on this section. And another thing is that, what was I going to say? You don't want it squishing out all over the place too, because once we shut this up, then if we've got a bunch of glue squished all over this area, it could very possibly glue our gusset together. That's something we don't want to happen. So we're going to put glue on this part of each of the gussets, making sure that it's completely covered, but not way too much. And especially making sure that we get to this inside edge, but not a whole bunch to squish out on the inside. So there we go. Now we have glued here and here. And so we're going to just shut this up. I'm going to push that one down and push that one down. Kind of get it so that it's okay. I'm going to look at that and see if it seems to look correct. And there we go. That's what our gusset is going to look like. So let's go ahead for right this second. We're going to weigh this down, and I'm going to show you a trick that was given to me by one of you lovely ladies, and it is the smartest thing. Hold on a second. I thought I had it right here. Smartest thing I've ever heard. A bag of beans to weight it down. They're nice and heavy. They're just something you might have around the house. If not a bag of rice or, you know. But the nice thing about it is when you're trying to do something, it was when I was gluing the spines in and I was, you know, like layering it up so that when I put a weight on it, it actually put pressure down in that point. It was suggested that I use a bag of beans. And it was like, that is such a good idea. And I'd never seen it before, and I had never heard it before, but ever since then, I have used it ever since then. It works great, because what happens is the beans kind of fill the area that, you know, like here, the beans are falling down into that, the indentation there where the spine is. And so you can do that, and then you can kind of level them out on top, and then still put a heavy book and a heavy weight on top if you want to. So this is the best way I've ever found to weight something down. And like I said, it was one of you that suggested it, and thank you very much. That was the most perfect suggestion. So if you're the one that did it, I do apologize, because it's been a little while now and I have forgotten. But if you were the one that suggested it, go ahead and let me know, because I just think that that was the most awesome idea. So now what we're going to do is we are going to cut the front cover of that. But before we do that, because I want that to stay for just a little bit, give it a chance to kind of take hold, then once we put our paper on here, then we will do it again. We'll put parchment on top of this so that the bag of beans doesn't stick to it, and then we will weight it down until next time. But since I want to let that sit for just a second, we're going to look at our little box here. And so this, I think, would look nice. The reason that I chose this color was I thought it went well with this page. So we have lots of browns here. So my thought was gusset it and do this with the browns. But because this page really doesn't have that, it does, but it, you know, I just loved this gray with this page. So that's why I chose this color. And so I'm going to use this color to do this piece here. And oh, that one's not quite long enough. But you know, if that's all you had left, it's not quite long enough, but you could just center it like that. And maybe ink around it, or draw around it, or paint around it. And then, you know, put some words from your book or a picture or something like that on there. So, you know, so always remember that all's not lost. If you don't have exactly what you need, there's always something that will fill it in. So let's look at this is our train book. And so I'm kind of doing the train stuff in the back and the circus stuff in the front, plus the stuff that goes with the map in the front, and, you know, just whatever I decide looks good. So this is our picture, and our box is going to be under this picture. So I'm thinking what we need would be nice if it looked good with this, because they're going to be right here next to each other. Now I do need it pretty much the full width of a page. So this would work really good right here, except it's very short, because I need this to be the full width of the page pretty much. So that one is not necessarily going to work for us, but that would have looked cute. And I could, if I wanted, I could put that on there and then cut out a piece of this and put it on there. But let's see what else we have first. See, now even that would be kind of cute. Just put the little trains on there. Except 2 would be too wide. Let's see how wide this is. This is... Okay, so the box is approximately 1.5 inches tall. So... is that so? Yep, just about 1.5 inches. Well, that is just 1 inch. See, 1.5 inches would cut off part of the next train. So I can't really, I was thinking I could do like maybe 3 strips of these, but I'm going to wind up having extra train and only a piece of it, and I don't like that. So we're not going to use that. We could use that for something else. And I may just wind up for now just putting that gray on there and then deciding later what to put on top of it. This is almost the width of the whole page. Let me see here. I'd have a little bit of white. I could put these people on there, but maybe not. And that's the thing. Just go through, and that is gorgeous. That will be really nice to do something with. I like that. These books just have such beautiful pictures in them. I really do like them. And that's why I chose to pick them for this book. And it was 2 things that Papa liked. My father, he liked trains and he liked circuses. So when I saw them, I thought, well, that would be really good. But he couldn't see anymore, so I couldn't really show him the pictures. I wished I could have, because he would have loved looking at them. Okay, I don't necessarily, these will make really nice tags possibly, or little flips. And I don't think I see anything particularly, no, that one might. That little group of houses, that would work. That's cute. So I think that I will go with that. Is there anything on the back? Always remember to look. And I am going to cut this with the razor knife because I pretty much need the whole width, so I don't want to take a chance of making a huge mess out of this over here. And I'm not sure where the center of the signature is, and I don't feel like going to find it to try and pull the strings. So I am just going to cut this right along the edge and make sure that you are out of the way, that it doesn't flip off and you don't want your knife to hit you. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to just kind of rip it up a little bit. I'll cut it up a little bit. There we go. Now I can rip it out of there without worrying about it. And I think this will look cute on our pocket. right to the very end. I thought we weren't going to find something, and then we did. And I think that I'm going to cut off the bottom of this right below the letters, because that's how far it's going to come down. Always remember to shut your guillotine trimmer. I always forget, and that is not a good idea. All right, so this is going to sit on the top part, and this will be underneath it. And so do I want, and we're going to have 1.5 inches. I don't know what I did with my ruler. Oh, here it is. It'll be about 1.5 inches of this. Okay, so right here, 1.5 inches only comes at the top of these trees, so I obviously don't want to be up there. Okay, so 1.5 inches will bring us down to right about here. Okay, so we're gonna trim. And see, those bins even work well. You can just put your stuff right on top of them. It's not a big deal. Okay, so I'm gonna trim this off with maybe a little bit of the tree on it. And then I'm going to put it on the box here and say, okay, it's going to go from there to there. It's going to be just below the houses. It's going to look about like that. And that's not bad. Maybe trim just a little touch more off the top. And because I don't know that my box is perfectly square, I'm not going to cut just 1.5 inches. I'm going to kind of fold it onto the box. I'm going to just line this up with the top of the box. Just like that. And then I'm going to fold it over the edge, because then I know where I have to cut it, because this box might not be the same width here and here. And then if I cut this in a rectangle, perfect rectangle, what's going to happen is you'll really see that one part of the box is bigger than the other. So this way, if it's not even, the picture's going to cover the whole thing, and nobody's going to notice that little smidge of a difference. But personally, I would notice on my own, not on anybody else's, but I would notice that there was a gap of cardboard. I'm going to do this one with my scissors. You know, I could have probably left that and wrapped it around and glued it to the bottom too, but then that would get a lot of wear and tear, because it'd be the bottom of your book. And there we go. That looks cute. I'm going to trim just a touch here, because it's very, there. It was ripped a little bit right there. So there we go. Put this on here, and that looks good. It's a little bit short for the box, which I knew that because it's the same size as the other page. But I can put some distress inks out there. I think that looks cute, so we're going to glue that one on there. And then we will glue our other one. As a matter of fact, let's see. Yeah, we'll glue this right now. Here we go. Instead of getting glue all over my hand again, this is big enough to... I want to be very careful not to get it over the top of the box and get it glued to the lid. And if you use like a credit card or something to spread out your glue, it helps you to kind of take off that excess and yet get a nice smooth amount of glue on there. at the top, kind of line it up towards each end, since we have a little bit extra on each end. There we go. Oh, I was going to measure this piece of paper for you because I'm curious as to whether it actually is the same size or not. So at this end, it is 1 1/4 and 1/8. So that's 1 3/8. And at this end, it is 1 3/8 plus a 16th. It's almost 1 1/2 at this end. So it's off by 1/8 of an inch, which is not too much. But that's why if you go ahead and just fold it down on there to make sure it's the same size as your box, nobody's going to notice that 1/8 of an inch. But if I had a gap of cardboard at the top or the bottom, that would be kind of noticeable. So that looks good for now. We can do some distress inks on there later. And our final thing is just to go ahead and we'll look at this and see how it's doing. We got a little bit of glue down there, so I'm going to kind of open that up a little bit. So it's good that we were doing the front also. So we've got our back pieces glued down really nicely here and here. And then we've got our front too. That was glued too. Okay, so we've got our nice little gusset there. And that will close up as we close our book. And, you know, depending on how much stuff you stuff in there, that's how much it's going to close. But now we're going to measure this to get it on here. So we are going to take off about 1/8 of an inch off of the edge of this. So I'm going to do that first. Just a very sliver. There we go. All right, so that's a good width. We've got a little cardboard here towards the edge, which is totally fine. I would rather have that than to have it keep catching and then winding up lifting this off. So now I'm going to hold this on here because that's how I want it, right there. And then I'm going to press across the top of that piece of cardboard, because that's going to let me know where to trim that. And I think I'm going to trim that by hand too. I hate trimming them by hand because they never look straight to me, but it's also hard sometimes to get it in the trimmer if you're not doing it by a specific measurement. And it's best not to go chop, chop, chop. Try and do like really smooth cuts as long as you can. That's even a pretty little piece of paper. Okay, so there we go. It fits top to bottom. It fits edge to edge. So now all we need to do is put our, no, I'm not. I want to punch a thing in it. And so I was going to just hold this up here and do it right now because I don't want to put my punch with the wet glue. So I'll have to wait to punch it until after this is dry. And I could just punch it right now. Just line it up and put that punch on there and punch it. But then when I glue it and I go to put this on here, it has to be exact in that spot, kind of. So why not just wait till it dries? So I'm going to wait till it dries. Get our glue on here. And actually, if you rough up your shiny paper, it does help. It does help the glue to stick a little bit. So I've already got some glue in some places, but I'm going to rough it up a little bit here and there. And if you find that it's lifting, there is a nice a gel. You don't want that powder on there, though, that just came. Make sure you get the powder off. This one. It's called Fix It All. This is a super glue, and it's a gel type glue. This works really well. So if this were to lift up, then I would use this glue to stick it back down again. But I'm going to start with just the tacky glue because that may hold just fine. It's definitely going to hold to the paper. I know that. So it's just a matter of how well it likes to stick to the plastic. We'll see. And what did I do with my spreader? Here's one. Okay, so now we're just going to spread this glue out. And let's see, we pretty much come to the edge, so I'm going to go ahead and go right out to the edge. I can wipe that off after I put my page down. But that way I know I went far enough. I want to get it everywhere. There's some places here in the middle where I didn't have any. Make sure that I get it all the way up to the top, out to those edges, and down to the bottom. Having a hard time getting in here. Okay, so we're going to line it up because we spread that out nice and thin. It's going to grab real quickly. So you'll only have a little bit of time to adjust it. So make sure you get it as close as you can and then get it adjusted as quickly as you can. And there we go. I'm going to take the other end of this and just burnish that down a little bit, especially since you have such a big piece of paper. That's good to do to make sure. And it's really best to go from the center. I was going this way, but you know, I was starting in the center. It's good to go from the center out, because then if there's any kind of air bubbles in there, you will push those out. So I'm going to wipe off that excess glue that I put on the edge here. I'm going to give this another look. Got some glue right there. Looks good on the bottom, feels good on the top. I just want to make sure I'm not gluing everything together. So there we go. So what we need to do now is we're going to need to punch our little half circle in here. I chose 1.5 inch circle because this is such a large piece. So I didn't want a little teeny tiny half circle in there. And that's just a thumb hole so that you can grab things that are in there. So that looks good. So that's what we've got today. We have made a gusset for our back part, and so maybe we'll do some more lap hook type flips next week when we come back, but I hope that you like this. I really enjoy making these books. They're fun to make because there's so many, and they're really fun to look at when you get them done, because there's just so many different things to look at. And you know, people just love the way that they, you know, oh, they open up that way and then they open up that way, and then you've got all of these different bits here that all move, and it's interactive is what it is. And so that's really nice. So see, I've got a little bit of a lift off here, and so that's why we want to get that bag of beans on there to get that held down nicely. And then if I didn't get any glue out there, which it looks like maybe I didn't, I will, after it's dry, I will go and check all of my edges and corners. And if you have a very small spot to get some glue, you can just put some glue on the end of a toothpick. And then just put the toothpick in there and just kind of smear it back and forth so that you can get down in that little tiny space without making too much of a mess. So there we go. Thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. And I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.